Hello and welcome into Reality Check. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary. I am joined as always by my good friend Jeremy, aka Jets Chaos. Jeremy, how goes it?
It's going, man. We are getting closer. 3 weeks from tomorrow. 3 weeks from tomorrow. And yet, as close as it is, I guarantee you from today, between that day, there will be 4 or 5 more spins on and rumors and headlines on what the Jets are going to do and what's changing. But that's all part of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and now with the calendar flipping over to April officially today, that's only gonna ramp up even more over the next 3 weeks. So I'm excited not only for this show, but just going forward too. And then, when we're live the day before the NFL draft and hearing what the latest rumblings are. And that's what this season's, this time of year is really all about. And I think we just have to embrace it as much as we want it to be here. And like, can we actually find out who they're going to draft? We're in the home stretch, just a little bit more to go.
Yeah, it's crazy how close we are to it. It really is just wild that it feels like uh, it's been the longest off season, I think, for me since in the last 4 or 5 years. It really has. This has seemed like an eternity.
Yeah, it does feel like a long time since the Jets last played a game. And, with how the season went, we were in off-season mode pretty early in the year. But let's get into it. We're gonna do it's heavy draft focus. Obviously, we'll answer your questions and comments as they come through. But both Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn spoke this week at the NFL owners meetings, and Darren Muji really doesn't give you a lot. Like, he gives very generic answers, and I feel like we'll have a question, we'll say something for about 30 seconds and does a really good job of really not addressing what he was asked. However, he did say that he is open to taking calls on the number 2 pick. So let's start there with the trade down part of the conversation.
I mean, I wouldn't overreact. Like, I knew there were some people right away said, "See, we're trading number 2. He's crazy," and such a powerful reaction to such. It was really the only answer if you're a GM that you can give. It would be absolutely ridiculous to say we're absolutely not trading that pick and we will not answer the phone. I don't think anybody wants to see that, right? Like, of course you're going to answer the phone. Right? If the phone rings and for like number 2, it doesn't mean you have to trade it. It doesn't mean we're looking to trade it. It just means that you're willing to answer the phone, because let's see, Tennessee wants to come up from 4 and offers us to swap their second, third, fourth, and a second. What if they give you a ridiculous offer? So, there's always that yeah, you got to answer the phone. But what I'll say is also, I really think that anything you see from the media, like whenever you see these rumors, the Jets are interested in this, they're talking. The only thing that's factual that you can trust is when they confirm meetings. And I would go to Dom C for that, and a trustworthy source. You can confirm meetings, and you could read into those meetings any way you'd like. But all the other stuff, Matt, when they said, "Oh, the Jets were one of the 3 prominent teams talking to Green Bay about this, wide receiver that they're looking to trade," I don't believe any of it. It's all nonsense to me. The one thing, feel and vibe I'm getting from this regime that we have here is that they're not leaking things.
No, they really aren't. They're making it significantly harder for information to get out, which I personally think is a good thing. And, my initial reaction to when I heard, because essentially all he said was, "We're open to taking phone calls at the number 2 pick." That doesn't say anything. Like I just said, going back in the open where Darren Muji doesn't give you a whole lot. It would be stupid if they just came out and said, "Yeah, we're not going to answer the phone. We're taking," not come out and say exactly who you're taking, but we love someone, right? Like, you want to see what's out there, right? Like you said, Tennessee is a good example. If they fall in love with Arvell Reese and are going to trade the moon and the sun, you could slide back 2 spots, still land David Bailey, Sonny Styles, Ruben Bain, whoever it is that you really like, and have a good piece on your defense and continue to build out even more picks. So, it's all about what packages are you getting versus how much do you like the player that you can get at 2 that you don't think you can get at 4, for example. And, I think you should weigh out those options.
Right. I mean, you might have three guys. If you have three guys, there's no reason not to go back to four. You might have three guys that are grouped so close together that you're saying, "Wow, if they offered us their second and their third, why wouldn't we do that? Because we have three guys like on our board really close together, and they're not going to show those cards. If he said no, we're not willing to pick up the phone. What you might be doing is making people think, well, they're not going to be reasonable. They have their guy, right? And they know they have their guy. When you say we're willing to pick up the phone, it's an emotional game. You're playing a game of an emotion because then you get teams. Because I guarantee you, 6 or 7 fan bases, when he said that, if that got out, went nuts with their rumors. Oh, we could trade up. Jets are looking to trade up. But you know what? You put that in the head of 4 or 5 GMs, and you never know if one of those GMs is going to be willing to do something ridiculous. You always got to keep options open. It doesn't mean, and the great thing is like we keep saying, it doesn't mean you actually have to trade it.
No, you don't. I want to go to this comment from Matthew here, who says, first time in a while I've been able to watch you guys live. Awesome. Welcome back. Muji is really smart. He won't take a trade down that doesn't benefit the team. Exactly. Right. And it has to be a legitimate offer. And maybe this is where the conversation could end up going here. If you're asking me, what do I think the likelihood of them trading out of pick 2 is, it's not a high number. I think if, when we get to draft night, it's significantly more likely that they are making the selection at 2 than they are moving down. However, you also have 16, 33, 44. There's other opportunities for them to move around. I know I'm a broken record. I'm not the only one to talk about this, but Jeremy, the pick that stands out to me that's most likely to be moved is 33 after you get through with night 1 and a team's going, oh my God, I can't believe insert this player here. It made it through to night 2. We got to go up and get this guy.
It's absolutely the most vulnerable pick, if you will, to be traded, because remember the draft, you're on the clock 15 minutes, like when you're reacting live real time, it's like, oh, a guy wasn't taken. Now you're panicking. You're on the phone. You're trying to get on and off the phone to different GMs to figure out how you can get up and get someone, right? It's mania. It's crazy. It's not always easy. You can't always pull it off, but you're right. The night ends. Everybody looks at the board. And then you're going to see how many GMs are going to literally go absolutely berserk because a guy came out of that first round that they absolutely love. And then they look and they say, what's the best way to secure that guy? Well, only one team offers the guarantee you get that guy. And that's the New York Jets, because we have pick 33.
Yeah. And, it happens a decent amount. I wanted to look at some examples of some trades at pick number 33. Jets X Factor wrote an article this past week looking at it, and you could honestly go either way, either trading back with it or trading up, right? Like, I know the two of us aren't super keen on drafting Ty Simpson in the first round, but if they really like him, is there a world where they could trade up from 33 to get him in the back half of round 1 so they get the 5th-year option? Like, I can't rule that out as a possibility, even though that might not be my favorite route for them to go. I think that can be something that's on the table.
Yeah, look, it's very believable if they like Simpson, right? Because let's just say that, like, the reality is we don't know who they like and who they don't like, or how much they like him, how much they don't like him, right? There's a good argument of why you could say they like him. They spent a lot of time and brought everybody in to meet him. If they really like him, of course, they might be really afraid of Cleveland in the back of the first round and say, we got to get in front of Cleveland, right? Because I believe Cleveland has like a pick there at 26 or something, some extra pick.
Yes.
I thought maybe I'm right. So that would be logical of we have to trade in front of Cleveland because maybe Cleveland didn't use their early pick, but they're going to use that pick. And that's true throughout. There's going to be a lot of teams, like if they wanted Simpson and they didn't take him at 2 or 16, they're going to be looking at all the potential teams that might take him that they might have to jump over. All of that is completely conceivable. What we don't know is if the Knicks like him, the Jets like him that much. And the thing is, the Knicks probably love him, but the but the reality is, um, it's also how much you like him. Because I love it when people say, "Well, we took him out to dinner, we did this, we're definitely taking him." It's like you could still prospect a guy, get to know him because you're planning on, well, if he drops to 33, are we going to take him? Or if he drops to 45, are we going to take him? Or 44, whatever it is. Like it doesn't, just because we're courting him and getting to know him and watching him really carefully, that could be for pick 44
It doesn't have to
very
be for the first
easily,
round pick.
right? It doesn't have to mean you're looking for, because with Ty Simpson, we don't know, right? We don't know. He could easily go in the first round. He can easily and believably go anywhere in the second round. All of it is believable because of the amount of games. We don't know what the GMs are thinking, limited starts. We just don't know what the feeling about him is.
No, we really don't. And this isn't the only quarterback that they're doing their due diligence on. Carson Beck, they did it already. Drew Aller, they did it already. The Texas Tech quarterback, they've done it. And I'm sure that's going to continue as they are, evaluating this class. And just because they meet with someone and just because they have a private workout with someone, these guys usually have 4 to 8 teams, depending on the year, come in and take a look at them. Of course, they're going to be doing their due diligence on these guys. You have to.
Yeah, I think that's the key word, is due diligence. It might be we're really not that interested in Ty Simpson because it's going to take a first round pick to get him. But man, we have to be prepared. What if he slipped to 45, 44? What are we going to do? If we didn't talk to him, if we didn't go look at him, that would be so irresponsible. Now he's sitting there at 44 and you don't know what you're going to do, and you didn't take the time to get to know him. So we don't know what number would be a number that they would want to grab him at. Maybe they trade back 33 and then he's there. Nobody knows. But so that's why I don't jump up and down anymore and go crazy when they talk to all these different guys, because you don't know what number in the draft they're talking to that guy for, or the reason. It's due diligence. It's just, we're going to probably almost definitely take a quarterback in this draft. Not necessarily a first round quarterback, not necessarily the quarterback that's planned to be the quarterback, but we are going to take a quarterback. And what do you do when you're going to take a quarterback? You're going to interview and talk to and get to know all the quarterbacks that you like.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. That's the only way that you can go about doing it. I saw this comment from Jonathan Lee for a trade proposal that I thought was interesting, so I want to pull this up. He says, what about pick number 2 for 6, 24, and 70 from the Browns?
I'm offered that. I'm offered that in the Titans all the time now. In the PFN mock draft, for some reason, the last 5 I did, I keep getting offers like this. And I'll be honest, most of the time I take it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would do that, because then you have 6, 16, 24, 33, 44, and 70.
Yeah, the way I look at it is, you could take, if at 6 both Bailey and Reese are gone, you could still go Bain if you like him, right? And I don't know how the Jets feel about him, but I feel like he's still very pickable, very draftable. And then, at 6, by the time he gets down to 6, Downs, Sonny Styles, Jeremiah Love, probably not, because Breece Hall is a guy I think we're trying to sign. But I mean, there are players that you could take at 6 and justify it. And people screaming, but how can you not go edge? How can you not go edge? Well, I mean, if you're a 1 year, we got to get it all this year kind of guy, I understand that. If you're a guy like me, you're looking at a 2-year rebuild. I guess we might not get our young stud edge. Okay, but I'm going to do value. And if you offer me 24 and 70 to go back 4 spots, and I'm still going to get a guy I love, if that's what my board says, I'm going to take value.
Or what if they just took Cornell Tate at 6, right? And be like, hey, that's our guy. Garrett Wilson loves him. We want to pair him with Garrett Wilson, and that's going to be our offensive duo going forward.
There's so much. I mean, there's so many possibilities. So many guys that are very draftable in that spot, for sure. That would help make this a better football team.
No, absolutely. And I don't think you could rule out Caleb Downs either in that spot. And who knows, maybe one of David Bailey or Ruben Bain are there for you at 6, and you go with the edge anyway. But that gives you an additional first round swing and it gives you a third round swing, which I think is something we desperately need because you don't have one right now due to the Hassan Reddick trade.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many ways that we can make our football team better. I think I don't know if, by the way, I have no prediction at all if how they're looking at the draft. I'm just like, when I say 2 year, I'm saying if I, I'm not a GM, and I wish I was. I mean, it's a great paying job. It's like it would be a dream job. But like for me, I would look at this roster as a 2 year rebuild. I would know realistically, I'm not going to put all the pieces of the puzzles together, in this 1 year. And obviously, I'm with Moogs. I'm going to pick up that phone because if you offer me great value that's going to benefit this team in the long run, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, and Jonathan follows up and says something like Tate at 6, CJ Allen 16, Emmanuel McNeil Warren at 24. Sold, right? I
Better,
like that. And then
much
maybe
better, much better football team with
is
those three guys.
significantly better. And then
Yeah.
maybe you're looking at a Zion Young in the second round at edge at that spot.
Right. And you know what? In a lot of those mock drafts where I trade for extra picks and move down, I take two edges in the second or third round. Like with those picks, I double down on edge for a better chance of maybe hitting on one.
Yeah.
Especially because I think there's a couple of really good guys that are in that second rounds that have high floors. They might not have the highest ceiling as far as sack volume, but there's a couple guys that are really solid players as far as sealing the edge that would be really good football players. And then there's the upside of they have the potential to be a high sack guy.
Do you have guys in round 2, like names that you usually go to often in that scenario?
What is it? Young. I like
Yeah.
one of them is Young that I go to, and then there's I'm so bad with names, you know me.
Or Mason Taylor, maybe?
Yeah, there's a few in there. There's a few in there that I like. One of them, I don't know which one. When I read the descriptions and I read some of Dom C's data, one of them I'm not as interested in because it's more of a pass rush specialist, struggles against the run, smaller guy gets pushed around. But the guys I look for the guys that are described, and I rely heavy on the Dom C app. By the way, I'm not hiding from that at all. Thank you, Dom C. He makes every year so much better for us because I trust his analysis and there's so much data there. There are some guys he talks about as just I look for really good at sealing the edge, really good at run stopping with potential to develop or has and shows promise as a pass rusher. It might not be as premium and there and in your faces with guys like Bailey or Reese, whoever you like, but plenty of edges come out of second, third rounds and end up being star players. So that none of this is definitive. But when you give me the floor of is going to be a good edge that seals the edge and solid against the run, I like that because right away it's not a bust. Right away you're getting value. You're just the only question that's being answered is, are you getting a guy that's going to pressure the quarterback, which is very important. And again, we have 2 years to do it. But if I double up in the second rounds, I think that's a good swing.
I wanted to go to this comment from Jay Cuddy, who has an interesting take on the quarterback situation, saying taking a quarterback anywhere between rounds 2 to 3 to only then take a quarterback in round 1 next year would just be a waste of a pick, in my opinion. Either take Ty at 16 or wait until Beck in maybe the third round and sell the team as the future. What do you make of his philosophy on the quarterback play for this year?
It's very similar to mine. It's a very valid take that I have a lot of agreement with. I personally feel that way kind of myself. I don't know. It's just a matter of where is your number that you're willing to take a guy that you're taking a swing. But okay if he just becomes like there are some people that would say at 44 you could still take a swing. Still take the guy in 27 because maybe the 27 guy flops and then that guy you took ends up being a big, hit home run. San Francisco did it in reverse order, right? They took Trey Lance first and then they took Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy saved their jobs. You can argue, whatever. He saved that from looking like as ugly a mess as it would have been. It could be that same philosophy. You could take a guy, the quarterback you take in 27 doesn't work. That guy gets gets a chance finally. And that's the guy. And you're so glad you took him, like a Ty Simpson. Or your number could be a 103. Like the earliest I want to go at 103. I personally, I'm a 103 guy unless the team absolutely loves the guy, quarterback. Like if they grabbed Simpson or Aller or Sawyer Robertson, one of those guys, and said, "We love this guy, and we really deeply believe he could be special and be our quarterback." I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm just going to be like, okay, fine. But I think I think it's what your number is. My number of safety is 103.
Okay.
You can take a quarterback at 103, and even if that's not really the plan, and you could still take a quarterback in 27. I think because of the position, you could throw a dart with 103. The position justifies it to me.
I was gonna say I feel slightly differently than you guys. I think for me, it's once you get out of round one. So I think even round two, I'm okay with them taking that swing. And my reason being, I don't view it as a waste of a pick until you find your guy, right? Like you have to take a quarterback until you find your answer. And who's to say that, okay, let's say let's just use an example of the second round, pick 44, whoever it is, pick your favorite guy. Is having a QB2 on a cheap deal for 4 years a horrible return on investment for a second round pick? I would argue no, assuming the first pick, in 2027 works out. But look at Kirk Cousins with Washington all those years ago. They took RG3 second overall, and they took Kirk Cousins in like the third or fourth round. And Kirk Cousins, a few years down the line, because RG3 couldn't stay healthy, ends up taking over and ends up being the guy. So thank God they took him in that spot. And, I know that's more of the exception to the rule than the reality, but the Jets have gone we're taking a quarterback in the top 5 route so many times and it hasn't worked. So I think, when you don't have a young quarterback you're excited about on the roster now, I don't mind taking one in the second round just to see if it works. Great. If not, all right, fine. You're taking one in 2027, and the guy who you took in the second round this year is probably on the roster anyway as a backup.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And that's what I mean. It's everybody has just a different in the number of what they're willing to risk. I personally, I don't like to say it because I'm tired of hearing it. It's my take. I stand by it. And I don't, I'm, there's a chance he's never going to be a good quarterback, and that's fine. I'll live with being wrong on it because I'm not saying take a first round pick on him. But personally, if we were at 45, I'd be happy taking Drew Aller. That's just me.
Okay.
I'd be happy taking a shot on Drew Aller because of his attributes and, what he could be coached into. And if he's not, he's not. And I'll stand by my take, and I know people are going to hate it and he stinks and you're out of your mind. I don't care. I mean, that's just the guy I like. And it's funny when people attack me for it and then like Beck. And I think that's so funny because it's like I've watched the film and it's like hysterical to me when I see things like that. Oh, you're an idiot for liking Aller, but I like Beck. And it's like, you watched his film?
None of those guys are going in the first round. So obviously there's flaws with both of those guys.
Right.
It's just whatever traits you like more.
And right, it's whatever traits you like more, whoever you like more, whatever whatever. And it's like, and I'm going to be wrong about quarterback every single year. There are going to be quarterbacks I like that are bust and so are the experts, and so is everyone. And then sometimes we're going to be right, and but we all have our reasons, and we like different guys. So I'm not totally off what you're saying because again, if we took him at 44, I'd be thrilled. I'd be really happy and excited.
I like this one from Ryan Zapardi. He says, I'd like to see them double dip at wide receiver or edge or both with the first 4 picks. To me, it kind of feels like the Jets are in a spot where they should take 2 wide receivers. Maybe not in the first 2 rounds. It could be, but they don't have a wide receiver 2 on this team. That's been pretty well documented. And, if you take one at 16, then okay, that guy's going to be your wide receiver 2. AD Mitchell's your number 3. And then who's your number 4 after that? Isaiah Williams? That's who would be in line. I think he's really more of a special teams guy. And Arian Smith didn't really show me anything last year to make me believe that he could be a wide receiver 4. He looks like a fringe roster player. So you probably do need to take another one.
I don't mind taking another one or signing another person the last second or trade or whatever it is to get a second one. I'm not using 2 of my first 4 in wide receiver because I don't every wide receiver in your roster doesn't have to be a star. It doesn't have to be this high investment pick. You have to be able to find decent players on day 2 and day 3. sometimes. Like you have to take shots. And also I'm a 2-year rebuild guy. So give me a wide receiver now with one of our first round picks, and then give me a wide receiver again next year with one of our top 3 picks. And because we're not going to the playoffs. If we go to the playoffs, that's great. I'm not going to say we're not definitively, but we're not a Super Bowl contender yet. If we're going to be realistic at all and have a dream of this team being really good, it's going to be at least 2 years, right, to do this until you could believably say, wow, we could be really, really excited. We don't have to fill everything, because if you get both those wide receivers now, that's fine. But understand, you're not going to get the young linebacker for the future that you need, the safety. You're not going to get the extra edge that you need. You're not going to get the future guard, maybe, or the future center. There's a lot of things that this team is going to need, like in the overall picture going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why. And you say this a lot. And I think you're right for bringing this up. That it's more than just a 1-year thing. This is a 2-year thing because it would be impossible for the Jets to fill every single one of their holes in this draft.
Right. I think the one thing is that I would consider in that and the reason why you have to take at least one wide receiver is because we want the team to be competent enough, first of all, to win some games and get some confidence, but also to be functional so you can evaluate your players, right? Like, so I can understand manipulating which spots you fill, even though you're not winning a Super Bowl, maybe, but to be competitive and to best balance the team to be able to evaluate players and then make a better judgment of what you're going to do in 27 with all those picks to bring in the next batch of guys. So that's a reason why I wouldn't do 2 high value wide receivers. I may get 1 wide receiver high value, one on day 3, in the middle rounds, whatever it is, because trades, we don't know how that's going to work. I'd rather do that. Go with Garrett Wilson and a really good wide receiver, and then test out Mitchell and Isaiah Williams and see what they are. Because some of them, they showed a little promise. The jury's not completely out on them. And if neither of them step up and it is an issue and we don't have that depth in the wide receiver room, yes, then in 27, we'll get that 3rd guy. But, if we draft Tate and we have Tate and Wilson, I'm feeling pretty good about that for a team that's in phase 1 of a 2-year rebuild.
No, absolutely. Right. And like you said, it's phase 1, right? I know with how long the playoff drought's been, every single person wants this to be over. And I get that. I want it to be over too. But, it gets to a point where you have to look at it a certain way that it might take a little bit of time. Lincoln chimes in and says, I truly believe Nussmeier is the guy over others. That's my day 2 quarterback that I like. And just like Jeremy said, like everyone's going to have their guys. You have some guys who like Drew Aller. You have some guys that like Garrett Nussmeier. You have guys that like Carson Beck. And the Jets are meeting with all of them and doing their due diligence on him. For me, what interests me with Nussmeier, you look back at a year ago, and similar to Drew Aller, he was expected to be a 1st-round pick in this year's draft. Both guys did not have the seasons that they were expected to. It came out that Nussmeier was playing through an injury for a majority of the season. And I also think his situation wasn't good. And you can make that same argument with Drew Aller if you like. So I think, and I don't love Nussmeier to the fact where I'm like, this guy could be an elite quarterback, but do I think he can come in and be maybe a game manager for you? I think yes. I think he has those kinds of traits where has the IQ and can just be a distributor of the football. And for me to take that swing in round 2 or round 3, I think personally is worth it. So that's why I happen to like Nuss on day 2.
I like him because he is like the thing I like about him, if I was to say what's the biggest positive I have on him, is the potential that he was definitely playing hurt without question. And then also, I think maybe out of all the quarterbacks in the country, he might be the most ready as just a seasoned leader and like quarterback IQ to be a pro. And this is just from watching him, just the feel I get when I watched him play at LSU, the control he has over the football field, the control he has over the huddle, the understanding of the game. When I watch him, I get that vibe. I go, wow, this guy really is in control of everything. He's really managing the game. So he feels very NFL ready for me from that perspective.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you there. So that would be my preference on day 2, but there's people that like Taylon Green. Sawyer Robertson's a name that gets talked about. Cole Payton's a fun project from North Dakota State. So there's definitely options out there. But what do you think? What do you think the chances are of the Jets just completely foregoing quarterback and not taking one at all in the NFL draft this year?
I would be shocked because remember, even on day 3, you could take a quarterback because you're looking for your future QB2, right? Like with the outside chance that they, oh my God, they become a star because you never really know because we've seen it happen, right? It doesn't happen often. It's not likely, but sometimes you take one of these names on day 3 and then a boom, right? You hit the lottery, but there's nothing wrong with getting your QB2 of the future either, right? So we're going to sign another veteran. Okay, who's going to be that third guy? Who's the guy that we're developing? Who's the guy that we're, that's even if they're on the practice, probably not the practice squad, but somebody that is just you're shaping and molding. And you might get it could be Newsmeyer, it might be Sawyer Robertson, it might be Beck, it might be some of these other guys like King, like and it turns out that, they're not a starting quarterback. They're not this great quarterback, but they're a really good backup quarterback that could develop into, we don't have to pay anyone money. They know the system. They're there. They're a solid stay. It's a good example of that when Baltimore for a while had him. And now I think they got him back. Huntley.
Yeah. Snoop Huntley.
Right. Yeah, so that's like an example of like just having like a decent backup quarterback, like that you could, that you didn't waste or take a giant early pick on, but gives value to your team for a few years until you decide if you want to pay him or not.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good call out from your part. Let's get to who's up next. Ryan Zapardi wants to know who is a wide receiver 3/4 that you'd consider on day 3. So if you're doubling up when you're doing your mocks, is there any? I know you're not really the name guy, but is there anyone that stands out to you that you tend to find yourself going back to?
There's no one I particularly love because sometimes I'll have a name of a guy that I really love and everything. There's like guys for day 2 like Skylar Bell, and names like that. And there are some guys that like Chris Bell. We don't know how far he's going to slip because of the injury. So, like there's no, and people think, oh no, he won't slip that far because, but we don't know because a lot teams, the GMs don't think like we do. They're not thinking, oh, it's the 3rd round. I have to take Chris Bell. He would have been a 1st rounder. We've seen guys slip all the way down because they always have guys on the board that they freaking love. And they're like, no, I'm not taking them because I still want this guy. There's a couple, there's a few. I don't think it's a very good wide receiver draft compared to other years and compared to, overall, like I don't think it's terrible, the top 5. I don't think the top 5 are terrible. I just think that they're not as elite as past years. Like even at the number 1, like there's no wide receiver to me that's even, I love Tate, but let's be honest, in other years, he's not top 5.
No, probably not.
Like he the year that all the wide receivers went with Neighbors and Marvin Harris, when would he have went? We would have gotten him. He would have been, we would he would have been around there. Nothing against the player. Tate might end up being a great wide receiver in the NFL, but as a prospect, as a pick, he's not that premier, flawless kind of guy that we've seen in past years. So, but at the same time, all the way down to the bottom, if you look at the top 5, top 6, all of them have the potential to end up being good wide receivers. I don't know. Like there's guys like Brazil, right? He's
okay.
People hate him. People love him. People hate him because he's from Tennessee and he only lines up in one place, right? But then also people love him because he's big and he's super fast, right? Like Green Bean loves him. So every year I think it can't happen, and then every year we go into day 3 and some of these guys are still there.
I'm gonna cheat a little bit and give you a guy who's really more of I would consider a day 2 player, but is probably fits this description the best to me. I still really like Elijah Surratt. I know he was at one point considered maybe a little bit higher of a 2nd round pick, and now is kind of looked at as a 3rd round guy. But I just think he could be a solid possession receiver. Not crazy flashy, but he's not going to have an issue with drops. kind of like that safety net wide receiver 3 type.
I love it. I could like he might be my guy that's closest to not in style or play, but in my emotional liking of. So I don't want people to go nuts and say he's nothing like him. I mean, just the guy that I like in a certain kind of way, like that people don't consider premier. So he's not in the top. Is I loved Lad McConkey out of Georgia,
Okay. Mhm.
right? And a lot of people didn't, and he wasn't projected. Oh, he's not going to go in the first round. That whole thing. And Sherrod could be that kind of guy, like in my mind, like one of those guys that just, or he might be our Puka Nuker of the draft because we all love
Yeah.
Puka. Remember, Sherrod could end up being that guy, right? Just like you said, he's not explosive. He's not going to be like the big name Jefferson Neighbors type of Jamal Chase kind of guy, but he might be the 90 to 110 receptions, third down possession receiver, clutch, guy that you love, So yeah, why not? Even like Wayne Corbett. It'd be a very different story because Wayne Corbett wasn't even drafted. But like, what if he becomes that kind of player though? Like an all heart, very smart, really good. I think because these are all attributes of his, really good against the zone, knows how to find the seams, knows how to get open.
He does. He does. Philly Noodles with the super chat. Thank you for the support. Says, didn't Reich win a Super Bowl with, I don't know, Nick Foles back in the fourth? So referencing a backup quarterback winning the Super Bowl. He did. As a reminder, he was the offensive coordinator, but he wasn't calling plays. I know that's something that gets brought up a lot, but yes, he was the OC during that Super Bowl.
So I'd say that's a good point on why. Oh, he's saying back forth. Yeah, that's a good argument of why it makes total sense to take a quarterback if you like him. Take a shot at the quarterback at day 3, and it doesn't have to be a starter to be a good pick.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You could survive with that being a backup option there.
Yeah.
Dano's late. We gotta give Dano shit for being late. He goes, sorry, I'm late. Dano, unacceptable.
Got stuck under a cement pillar on the construction site. Lots of things happen to him. It's like they give him a hard time. He's kind of skinny. So
yeah, that happens. That happens.
You got to keep to holding the flag, Dano. You're the guy that waves the cars on the road.
That's got to be the best union job, right? Or you're just waving and then flip it around, stop.
The guy that just holds the stop when he does that.
Yeah. That's the job
you get to play with the radio and the other guy.
Yeah.
Okay, man, I got a long line here. I got to let these people go. Okay, man, let me let 2 more cars go. It's
the best. It's the best. Okay. So I also wanted to get into Aaron Glenn. So we talked about Darren Muji's comments, but with Aaron Glenn, when we were talking about what we're going to discuss on the show today, you used a word that I thought was fitting for Aaron Glenn. You said he sounded like he's been humbled. You want to talk about like what made you feel that way?
I just feel like that he came out last year out of the gates trying to be Parcells, trying to be like a Belichick, trying to be a guy, like that has already earned his stripes enough to just blow off the media. Right. And just be like, like he kind of, and there was a lot of arrogance. There's a lot of confidence. And when I say confidence, not the healthy confidence, but the confidence in like, what are you talking about? Like where we're like, what is he talking about? We're not going to, and I feel like if I did that, if I went that route, I'm going to go in and I'm going to like control the press right from and I'm going to show who I am. And then I won 3 games. I'd be kind of humbled. And I just felt that, and he looks humbled. Like maybe he realized, maybe I need to get some wins before I decide to make the rules about what the media is allowed to ask me and how I could treat them. Maybe I need to play the game a little bit because, I've won 3 games in the NFL. Maybe I need to do a little bit more. And I need to, it looks like he purposely, and I don't know if he was coached to do it, by personal support, like his own agents, whatever, or told to do it by his bosses, or if he came to the realization to do it. But it seems like he came in very intently and purposefully to try to be a little bit lighter and a little bit more user-friendly to the media.
Yeah. The word that I was going to use is less combative was how I thought that press conference went. Like his first one was obviously very intense. And I thought his first one at the combine was also very intense. But maybe he looked at it, and I don't know if he would admit this because obviously he's a proud man and he's the head coach of an NFL team, but it was probably a bit of a culture shock, right? Going from a defensive coordinator to a head coach and going from a team, that won what 14, 15 games the year before, and now you come to the Jets and you win 3 games and you're struggling and you're limping down into the finish line. After he came here, he said, coaching was the biggest difference, and it does feel like the tone has changed a little bit there with the head coach, which honestly is probably necessary after how last year went.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's when people going to implode if you come out there and saying the whole, strap on, here we go, we're gonna like, and you're just like blowing people off, saying we're not gonna lose. Like it's people going to say, look, it's going to get old real fast. I almost think he had a moment, possibly. This is all speculation.
Sure.
You remember the movie Cool Runnings? You ever see the movie Cool Runnings?
Yeah.
You got these guys, and they're trying to be the German team, the
Yep.
Swiss team. They're like Einstein, and one of them goes, "Hey, forget about this, man. This is not who we are." I'm sorry, that's the worst Jamaican accent. He says, "Yo, man, this is not who we are, man. Let's just be ourselves. Let's have fun and relax and be ourselves." And I'm almost thinking, I'm telling that story because I almost think like maybe somebody went to Aaron Glenn, or maybe he had this realization that he just needs to be himself.
Yeah.
You don't have to put on this exterior. Just be real and just be who you are, because it feels like he's being more natural and more just a regular guy who's being himself.
And it's a big year for him, right? Like, I think the pressure is on, and they need to win some games this year in order for him to keep his job, to get to 2027 and to see this plan all the way through, which kind of ties into this comment that Jonathan has saying, how many wins do we need for him to be the head coach in 2027? He says 7 question mark.
I don't know if I could base it on wins, but only.
I was going to say part of it's eye test too, right?
Definitely. It's also about feeling, right? Like, how did this year go? Did we win a bunch of games and then lose everything at the end? Did we battle, like, kind of, we're losing record, but we're fighting competitive, and then at the end we start winning these games, and there's a good feeling, and players are starting to emerge, and it's starting to really feel like it's happening. It's just it's how you feel too, right? Because we all know that you could have 6 wins and still feel like crap. Like, we played crappy. We won 3 bad games out of just the other team practically gave it to us. Maybe we had a couple of good games where we got the win, maybe a lucky turnover in one, right? And then in the other games we got blown out, and it's the same ugliness, and we're still frustrated. We don't see any growth. Or it could be we're competitive every game. We beat some really good teams. It's towards the end where we could see the team coming and starting to gel and come together. We've all, anybody who's been a fan for years, you've all lived through that, where, it's more than just the record. There's a feeling about the team and the direction the team is heading. So I think obviously we can't, walk away with only 3 wins, but I think that I think sometimes 5 to 6 wins could, or let's say 4 to 5 wins could look better than 6 wins in some situations. Right? Or 6 wins in one situation could be fine, keep them. And in another situation, 6 wins could be, we got to fire this guy. He's never going to be the guy.
Right. Like, are you 3-10 and then you go 3-1 in your last 4 games and beat up on like the Patriots and Bills resting starters and like some other team like Arizona, will say, that's picking first overall? Like, is that how you get to the 6, or are you kind of just, I don't know, you're 4-6 and then you're 5-8, and like it just is the slow progression to get to the 6-11. Like, I think that matters. 7 kind of feels like it's around the number for me. How they get there though definitely matters and is a part of the equation, like you pointed out.
Right. It's a 2-year rebuild. We totally disposed of this roster. I would like to be a winning team. I'd like to have a winning season, but the reality is I don't think his job hinges on a winning season. When you see what this was just done with this roster and what we've been doing, I'm not happy with him. He's off to a obviously eyebrowing start. He's like got strikes against him. There's no question about it. But It's not as simple as you need to have a winning season or you're fired. That's ridiculous, especially when we scratch, or cut the roster down to nothing and are literally rebuilding it from the ground up. I just need to believe that in 27, few more draft picks, another, tons of cap space. I need to really believe, oh yeah, we're getting there. Like we finished that season with a feeling of guys are emerging, they're looking good, they're super competitive. Now we're going to add on tons of draft picks and $150 million worth of cap space. It's like, but you could still see it's a team is well coached. They can go 7-10 and still be 6-11 even, and still look like a really much better coached team that's heading in the right direction. It's not impossible. So, it's just, to me, it's about feel. It's about feel, but they have to win They have to win. If they win anything less than 6 games, though, it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, it is gonna be hard to justify that, and that's kind of what J-Boy is saying. When did losing seasons become okay? They're not okay, obviously, but you have to take into account from the starting point, where they were, right? They're 3
Yeah,
and
you have
4.
to look at how long have they been. Yeah, where did they start? How long have they been a coach? How much of a chance is there upward growth? I mean, can you imagine if companies manage themselves that way? Like if they didn't look at those other things, it's just like, oh, you didn't hit the sales number, you're gone. You fired people. You never, like, you got to get consistency. If this guy shows promise and the team is coming together, they love him. If they start playing better together for him, and we see lots of improvement in lots of areas, you know, you just can't keep firing people. You have to, without looking at the whole picture. You have to look at the whole picture. We're not going to be happy. We're not going to say great job, but we're going to say, okay, now you're on the hot seat for sure. Like, you have to now. Let's say you get to 6-7 wins. He's 7-10. Some things look good. Now we use 3. Now we have all these draft picks. We spend $150 million on players added to that team you just won 7 games with. You're on the hot seat.
Yeah,
You
now
now
it's been 10, 11.
You have to win 10 plus games, or you're gone. Like, we all agree on that. But I'm not firing you. Not for that. If I was going to fire you for that, I should have fired you last year. Like, if you're thinking, if Aaron Glenn goes 7-10, I'm firing him, and they should fire him, then they should have fired him already.
Here's the line. J-Boy says playoff mandate. Playoff mandate is the line.
Well, then you're somebody who fired him anyway, right? I mean, and I understand if you're a guy who wanted him fired anyway, but like, it doesn't make sense from the team perspective. If you didn't fire him, now you're going to fire him? He's going to jump up to 7 wins. Let's say things are going in the right direction. Now you're going to fire him? It makes no sense. Unless you're a guy who already believes he should not be the coach.
Which there's a lot of people who feel that way. So maybe that's the case.
Right. There are a lot of people who that feel he shouldn't be the coach. So I can't argue with that. But if you're here now and you're at the point where, like, well, he's our coach, let's see what he has to do. It's just, again, I can't put it to a number of wins. But I respect the fact that J-Boy said, I have a number of wins. He has to have a winning season. It's 9. Okay. That's your take. He has to win 9 games. He won him fired. It's not my take.
No. And it also depends too, like, in addition to the win-loss record, are they a better disciplined team? Do they cut down on penalties? Is his in-game decisions better? Like, there's no, at halftime against Denver, and then there was another one where they just gave up right before the half to a week or so after that. Are they getting blown out? Is it 1-score games? How much did the defense improve with him being the play caller? Again, there's so many factors for me that goes into it in addition to the win-loss. So that's the tough part. And that's what Peter S. is saying too. Tangible improvements include getting the coaches to truly develop some borderline talent. Like, if these guys take a leap who are, year 2 guys, and Jamie and Sherwood gets back to looking like a good linebacker, or AZ Thomas looks like a high-end starter for you, part of that matters in the equation.
Yeah, what if one of those games is against Buffalo or New England? One of those 7 wins, right, is against Buffalo or New England, and in the other games against those teams, the Buffalo and New England, we play really competitively, right? 7 wins, but we beat either Buffalo or New England at least once, and we played them super competitively. Like, that looks a lot different than we got blown out by those teams, all 4 games, and we just beat 5 really bad teams that were also bad, and 2 average teams that were at the end of the year that didn't care anymore because they were eliminated from the playoffs. There's different ways you can win 7 games. It's just different.
Yeah, like if I don't know if the defense goes from 31st to 12th and they win 7 games because Geno Smith has 20 picks this year, do you hold that against Aaron Glenn? I don't
I
know.
mean, I still raise the question of I haven't seen him with a real quarterback.
Right.
It's really hard to keep
It's hard.
and eventually it's his fault. So now
Sure.
they have to get the draft pick right because he's part of with the GM. They're a team, so they're picking together. They're assuming they're in agreement. He has some accountability on that. But so at some point it does become, well, then it's the coach's fault because it's been how many years and you haven't found the quarterback. This is only year 2, right? And it really is hard to swallow the idea of he does a lot better. He shows great improvement. The quarterback sucks, so we can't get to over 7 wins. And now we get rid of him as a coach and never get to see what he could develop into as a coach because he never got to coach a team with a real quarterback. And we all know how important that is.
Yeah. And that was part of the reason why they kept Robert Saleh for the beginning of his 4th year, right? It was, our plan was to bring in Aaron Rodgers and he got hurt and they had to go back to Zach Wilson. So we're going to give him year 4, even though they went 7-10, for the 2nd year in a row. Like there's context to all of it too.
There's tons and tons of context. And there's, because I don't want to look like a guy I'm definitely more to the negative side. Like I have a very bad taste in my mouth from last year with Aaron Glenn. I'm not holding the pitchfork and saying fire him. There was a moment I was, and then there was a moment where I was like, okay, I calmed down. And the second they didn't fire him, the first month, as soon as that first month after the few weeks of the offseason went by and we didn't fire him, I said, okay, I'm a Jet fan. It's time to move on. He's our coach, and now we just have to hope that he does turn it around and he's not this terrible nightmare disaster car crash coach, that is going to come in and next year is going to be terrible also. And then we're going to have to, start all over again. I'm just rooting for the best. I want to see this team. I want to see him grow. I just want the team to be better. I want him to take I think the team, not a small step forward. We need to take a really pretty big step forward.
I agree. And that's what and I know we weren't talking about tanking, but I know that there are people who want to see the Jets end up with the number 1 pick or Jets fans. And I get that because getting the quarterback is super important. But I'd feel pretty shitty about the rest of this team if even with all the changes that they made and the coaching, you could sell, we're going to get a new coach in here and everything's going to change. But it probably doesn't speak very highly of the 2025 or 26 draft class if that's where this thing ends up.
Yeah, I have the same. I'm with you. I have the same problem. Like I know people say, but Jeremy, if we won 1 game and we got the quarterback, it could end all of our problems, and this is why we never do. But my response to that is, though, everything would have had to have gone so bad for us to be 1-16, and that would make me think even still it's a roll of the dice. No quarterback is guaranteed. And now you're taking a quarterback. Okay, you're getting a great opportunity that you believe could be a superstar quarterback. No guarantee. But now you have the issue of like your team's 1-15, like your team, everything went wrong. So that means to me, lots of guys didn't pan out. Nobody, lots of guys didn't take that next step. Lots of guys didn't get better. And then we're in a whole different kind of hell. As opposed to we win 6 to 7 games and lots of things start to happening and emerging. Like, Mason Taylor's looking like a real tight end because Geno Smith is decent enough to actually be able to get him the football. And, maybe A.D. Mitchell shows he could have a real future on this team. Maybe not the number 2 wide receiver, but maybe he's really good. Good guy to have in the locker room, in that room that we're happy about. There's so many things. Membu takes a step up and maybe he's going to be like a top 3 offensive tackle in the league. Maybe Fashanu needs to take a step forward. He's not good enough for where we drafted him yet. He needs to take another step. He needs to grow a little bit more. He needs to be a little bit better to start looking and having me convinced that he's the guy. So there's a lot of things we're looking at. And it would be really bad news if those things were all blowing up in our face.
Another good hypothetical here. I think this is a good spot to close out. Hypothetical, we win 7 games this year. Team looks improved. However, there are still some hiccups. Does Aaron Glenn deserve another year? And he says a guy like Tomlin wants the job here. Would you rather then go to Mike Tomlin or run it back with Aaron Glenn?
I'm not going to say what I predict they would do. Personally, I would hope that they fired Aaron Glenn and hired Mike Tomlin. Like, you know what I mean? I hate that. And I understand that's the danger of when you hold on to a coach, like opportunity cost.
Yeah.
You know, like who did you not get because you gave that coach another year? So secretly, I don't know. I can't like publicly like if you know like it's kind of like considered it's frowned upon to fire a guy who doesn't deserve, you know, who didn't deserve to be fired, and for it to be because there was someone else available. But as a fan, I'm hoping for it.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I have hoped, secretly hoped that coaches that I liked got fired because I saw who was available, and I said, well, if they fired him and hired that guy, I'd be pretty freaking happy.
And what if Kevin O'Connell becomes available and Darren Muji wants to link up with KOC?
Oh my god! Stop!
We could dream, right?
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's a good place to leave it for this week. Thank you so much for hanging out for another episode of Reality Check here on the channel. Make sure to leave a like before you go. Subscribe if you're new. I'm Matt. He's Jeremy, and we'll catch you guys next time.